Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today, and whether you know me already or you just stumbled over this video, welcome. So this is actually the first time for me filming this kind of video, so I hope I don't do too bad of a job and just bear with me. So why did I want to personally make this video? Why is it important to me? Well, on the weekend I was just browsing online and checking the headlines, reading the news, what's going on in the world and whatnot, and I stumbled over an article about a hotel in Germany that doesn't want to have any overweight or fat guests. I think it is also very important to do something about the discrimination against people who are overweight. I know there is so much going on in the world right now. It's really overwhelming and actually extremely heartbreaking, and I do not want to take away from that. And as someone who actually grew up in two countries who have a terrible history of cruelty, suppression, discrimination, even escalating until genocide, I think that it is extremely important that these matters be addressed. History must not be allowed to repeat itself like that again. And I'm really glad that there are so many people all over the world who are speaking up and coming together and have decided to actually do something about it. And so, even though so much is going on in the world, I still really wanted to make a video about this topic because, like I said, I just read an article about it, and this whole subject and this whole problematic is really, really close to my heart. So this video is not about, in my opinion, some stupid hotel that has a policy that they will not accept fat or overweight guests. It is actually about the bigger picture behind it all. It is about the discrimination of people who are overweight. So after reading that article, I read several other articles and I decided to do a little bit of research online and just look into what kind of laws do we actually have in this country, so in Germany, to protect people against discrimination of any kind. And so while doing my research, I found that Germany has a law against discrimination. It is called the Equal Treatment Act. So basically this law is to protect people from discrimination in certain areas, 6 areas to be exact. They are age, disability and chronic diseases, race, gender, religion, and sexuality. So I read through all the paragraphs and there is no law that protects people who are overweight from discrimination. I find that absolutely shocking because it means that it's not against the law to discriminate overweight people, so basically it's allowed, it's accepted. And I think that we desperately need to change that. So before I go into depth about that, I thought for everyone who doesn't know me yet, or actually even the people who do already know me from some of my videos, I'll just give you a little introduction to myself because I have not really gone into depth or not even touched the subject of who I am. Who is this Tanya chick anyway? Well, let's start with the obvious. I'm female. I am a real redhead. I am 41 years old and I am also overweight. I was born in Zimbabwe, which back in the days when I was born it was still called Rhodesia, and I grew up in South Africa and in Germany. And I currently live in Germany. I had a difficult childhood and I suffered from depression and anxiety for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a little girl. I developed an eating disorder when we moved from South Africa to Germany, and I was in my young teens. I developed an atypical eating disorder, which in my case meant that at times I would binge eat, and then other times I would practically starve myself. And it would alternate. Sometimes I would binge eat and then I would starve. At some point as a young adult, I became obsessed with counting calories. So I would count every single calorie that I put into my body, whether it was a drop of juice or a teaspoon of olive oil, and then it kind of escalated. Like, I got really fanatic about it, and I had to eat less and less calories from meal to meal, and then I had to eat less and less calories overall from day to day, to the point where I wasn't eating 1 apple a day. And after a while of reducing my calories to practically nothing, I actually kind of slid into anorexia. It wasn't planned or anything. I mean, I don't actually know how other people experience it, but I kind of just like slid into it. It was just like, I don't know, it was like a snowball. It just kind of like spiraled out of control, and I got to the point where I just basically stopped eating. My highest weight was 154 kilograms, which is about 340 pounds. And then in 2014, I had weight loss surgery. I actually had a gastric sleeve. After my gastric sleeve surgery, I lost a total of 86 kilograms, which is round about 190 pounds. And I weighed, I think, between 67 and 68 kgs. Unfortunately, my eating disorder could not be surgically removed. And now, 3.5 years later, I have put back on quite a bit of weight. I actually weighed myself for this video, and I currently weigh 114.7 kilograms. In the future and upcoming videos, I really would like to talk about weight loss, weight gain, eating disorders, surgery, all those kind of things. And I will go into depth about these subjects and also my journey and my experiences in those videos. I highly agree that being severely overweight can cause numerous illnesses and conditions and even result in death. But this video is not about that. This video is about the discrimination of overweight people and the damage it actually causes, and why we also really need laws to protect overweight people against such abuse. I really hope that by pointing out that eating disorders are actually illnesses, that it will bring some understanding to a lot of people who have never had to deal with an eating disorder in their life or in, with the people around them. And that maybe when we educate people a little bit more, then people will be able to understand better and be kinder towards one another. As someone who struggled pretty much their whole life, when I read those articles, it really hit me close to home because it just reminded me of the lifelong struggle that I've gone through and that I sometimes to this day battle with. Even before I was overweight, I struggled with the feeling that I didn't fit in, or with the feeling that people often gave me that I didn't fit in. And it started out with something absolutely ridiculous, something as stupid as my hair color. Yep. Growing up a ginger, I was pretty much the only kid around that had red hair. And yeah, I was made fun of, and sometimes or every now and again I was left out. And I just felt like I was different. People gave me the feeling I was different, and they somehow gave me the feeling that it was not okay to be different. Damn, I remember when Disney brought out Ariel, the Little Mermaid. That was like groundbreaking for me. It was like, hallelujah, finally Disney has come out with a red-headed princess. Now, I don't know, probably a bunch of you people out there cannot relate to that at all, but for me, as a young girl, it was just fantastic. Like, very often we would play princesses, and the blonde girl would be Sleeping Beauty, or the girl with the long hair would be Rapunzel and whatnot, and there was no princess for me. So finally, when Disney came out with Ariel, it was like, yes. And then while growing up came the agonies of dealing with society's discriminations against me for being overweight, for not checking all the boxes of being pretty. Yeah, it was actually really tough at times. But you know what? I was actually lucky because I had a grandmother and a father who really loved and adored me, and they would tell me things like, ignore them. They're just jealous. And besides, you're witty, you're intelligent, you're kind and caring, and those are the things that really count. And very often that would get me through, but not always. So sometimes, even when I recalled what they would say to me and the way they would reassure me, it just wasn't enough. I just felt isolated. I felt broken, like I was worthless. And growing older, I realized that there are a lot of very mean and ignorant people in the world. And yeah, I fought my battles and I keep fighting my battles, but sometimes I think to myself, what the fuck? Like, literally, why do I have to fight battles at all? Why? Why do I have to fight about something that should be a given? You know, as far as I'm concerned, if I am a good person, I don't know why I would have to justify myself for what I am or the way I look to anyone. But I still want to emphasize the fact that I was also lucky. I was lucky because I've always been a very outgoing person and I make connections with other people very easily. It's very easy for me to make contact and to start a conversation and to gain people's trust. So it was never hard for me to make connections or make friends, and that makes me very lucky. And even though throughout most of my life I have not been thin and I'm definitely not the prettiest fish in the pond, but I've always had what I consider to be a pretty good sense of humor, paired with a very masculine and, like a guy that I once had a crush on said to me, villain-like laugh. I've always found it very easy just to make friends and to win people over, which basically put me in the very privileged position of having to deal with people putting me down and discriminating me, but also having a great support base behind me. People who love me, people who supported me, who told me, you know what, ignore them, you can do it. And even though I find it easy to make friends and make connections, I must admit that I am also very, very good at portraying somebody who is confident and who is happy and who frankly doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks about them. But deep down on the inside, it's a whole different story. And on the one hand, I think it's good to be able to do that. And on the other hand, it kind of makes life a little bit more complicated, and the people that are closest to you often don't really understand what is going on in your head or don't understand the struggles you're going through because you are not communicating to them, you're not letting them in. So it's kind of like a good and a bad thing to be able to pretend and to portray that you are something that you are not. And basically it all boils down to the fact that if we didn't have to deal with stupid issues like discrimination, then we wouldn't need to have to portray anything. That's what this video is about. This video is for all those people, young and old, who feel like they don't fit into what society thinks they should be like. For all those people fighting their battles every day, whatever those battles may be. And especially for those people who are not fortunate enough to have a support system and have people rooting for them, standing in their corner, who've got their backs and who love them for who they are, regardless. That's what I thought I would make this video for, because I realized that a lot of people fight the same battles that I have fought and I still do fight, but they're alone. It is also really important to allow yourself to have negative feelings, so to feel hurt, to feel angry, to feel frustrated. But I do also think that it is very important to, at some point, start looking for solutions, start finding coping mechanisms for things that we cannot change, so we don't get caught up too much in all the negativity. And my experience with this is that sometimes at some point, it's actually not really possible to do that without professional help. So be this a therapist, or going to group therapy, or talking to, I don't know, a counselor, or friends or family or whatever. My experience was that a lot of the time I would like somehow get by, and I would like go through rough patches, and then it would get better. But sometimes I would really have the feeling like I've hit rock bottom. And in the worst times, I actually did get professional help. And asking for help is nothing to be ashamed of. Whether it's from friends or family, or professional help, checking into a clinic or whatnot, definitely nothing to be ashamed of. And actually it makes you a bigger and better person in the end. So I have included some links in the info box of websites where you can get information about eating disorders, if you need any help and stuff like that, because I thought maybe some of you might be interested, or actually need some help, or want to look into it, and I hope it helps you out a bit. And so what do eating disorders actually have to do with this video, and to do with the topic of discrimination against overweight people? Well, I thought it was important to point out that eating disorders are actually illnesses. And in most cases, the people who suffer from eating disorders actually need to get professional help. And I thought that by bringing this up and pointing it out, that maybe some people will get a better understanding of things. All this fat shaming and body shaming in general has really devastating consequences for the people who suffer from it. Even people who suffer from anorexia or bulimia, which are completely different illnesses to people who are overweight and binge eat. But even those illnesses very often have to do with the fact that they are afraid of weighing too much, gaining weight, being fat. And so it all has to do with each other. And where does the fear of gaining weight and being too fat come from? From society. From society that tells us in every newspaper, in every movie, that it's not okay to be overweight, it's not okay to be different. We all have to check all the boxes for pretty and for attractive, and it kind of really messes up the minds of people. So we don't just need laws that protect us against discrimination on the grounds of gender or sexuality, etc. We need laws that protect us against discrimination in general. When you think about it, I'm pretty sure that almost everyone has been discriminated sometime in their lifetime, whether it's weight or mental illnesses. Some people are discriminated because they have depressions, or they have eating disorders, or they have social anxiety. There is discrimination against people who have physical illnesses, being something severe as having HIV, right up to something like hair loss or acne. Like, even when it comes down to appearance, so many people are discriminated for the way they look, whether they have, I don't know, crooked teeth, or they have a birthmark, or even people who have been in accidents or have burns on their bodies, or scars and stuff like that. Very often you read and hear about people being discriminated for the way they look. Another area of discrimination which I find extremely sad is being discriminated for the fact that you are poor. Or in our first world society, not even really poor, but poor. So if you are not wearing the right jeans, or you don't have the right mobile phone, or you don't drive a fancy car, even stuff like that. And it happens way more often than you would think. The interesting question here is, why is it not okay to discriminate someone on grounds of gender or race, but it's okay to discriminate someone for being overweight? I think I have a point. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not. It is not okay and should not be tolerated and not be accepted. You know, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Everyone. So am I. However, it cannot be allowed and accepted to turn a blind eye all the time when it comes down to discrimination. As far as I'm concerned, you don't have to like me, or my hair color, or my gender, but you do have to treat me with respect, the same as I do you. I think it's really simple. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, but I remember that old saying that I always heard when I was a child: if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And I think there's definitely something to that. In a perfect world, I would wish for not just tolerance, but actually acceptance. But we're all humans, and humans make mistakes. And I basically think the only thing we can do is educate ourselves and educate the people around us and our children, communicate and show more compassion for one another. And no, it's not always easy. And yes, I also have to remind myself of these things every day. And sometimes the people around me also have to remind me and say, maybe you should take a step back and have a look at that situation, because like I said, we are all human. But I think the difference between maybe somebody good and maybe somebody bad is the fact that a person who is genuinely a good person, when they make a mistake and it is pointed out to them, or they figure it out themselves, they are willing to apologize, to make amends, to try and do it differently the next time. I think discrimination is something that sadly a lot of people encounter in their lives, and it's something that we need to do something about. I am also really eager to hear your thoughts and experiences when it comes down to the subject of discrimination in general. So please feel free to drop me a comment down below. I also hope you could find something helpful in this video for yourself, and even if it is just food for thought. So thanks so much for dropping by, and if you haven't already, go check out Disney's The Little Mermaid.